Today I'm reviewing the Noble Audio Night. This is a tribrid triple driver IEM. We've got one dynamic driver, 10mm dynamic driver, one balanced armature driver, and one piezoelectric. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. Check out the box on the Night here. I think that is pretty awesome. I love that. Bit of a different theme going on. It's a refreshing change from all the waifu stuff that we get. So here we go. Let's have a look inside. Hey, pretty cool. Look at that. That is just the ear tips case, but it's nicely themed along with the Night theme. I like that. Inside, pretty good selection of ear tips. 3 pairs of silicone, 3 pairs of double flange silicone tips, and 3 pairs of foam ear tips. That is a nice little case. Unfortunately though, there is no hard case for the IEMs, which is, that's a shame. But let's have a look at said IEMs now, because they are pretty. By the way, the price of the Noble Audio Night is $289 US. I believe this is their cheapest model to date. It's even cheaper than their TWS wireless earbuds. But just check that out. It's really nice. We've got this sort of purple and blue hues with a knight's crest design in the middle. I think they look amazing. The shells are aluminium and the build quality feels amazing. They actually feel better built than most of the other stuff around this price range, around the $200 to $300 mark. These feel really solid, something like you'd expect from a Dunu earphone maybe. Got this lovely matte black finish. The nozzles are quite long. They're somewhat long, so they do go fairly deep into your ears. I actually was able to use the stock ear tips, which is always a pleasant surprise for me when I can use the stock ear tips. Love that. Anyway, yeah, they're comfortable. They do protrude out from my ears a bit. I guess I could go even smaller than that with the ear tips and sort of go for a really deep insertion, but I found them super comfortable nonetheless. They've got standard 2-pin sockets there. Let's have a quick look at the cable. There's nothing special about the cable, reasonably generic, but it's a high quality cable. Comes with a 4.4mm balanced termination. I'm not sure if you can get a 3.5mm single-ended or not, but yeah, the cable handles quite well. It does have a little bit of memory, but overall it's quite good. Rightio, let's talk about the sound now. So the Night here is a bit of a contrast of sorts. Like, first impressions when you first listen to it, it's like a very musical and sort of fun IEM. It's got a good dose of bass going on and a nice warm sound signature. But as you listen a bit deeper, you'll find that there is more beneath the surface of that. It's definitely got some audiophile qualities too. So it's a bit of a dichotomy because you've got this really analog character, but at the same time you've got pretty solid technical performance. I'll talk a bit more about the technicalities later, but it's got a really engaging flavor, sort of warm and textured, but beneath that you've got surprising clarity and control. I will throw up the graph for you here. Check that out. And due to popular demand, I've now started including the Harman 2019 IEM target, so you can see that the bass, the sub bass, is significantly lower than the Harman target, but the sub bass still hits pretty hard. You get some good rumble there. I actually like this kind of tuning. You get a nice linear or flat transition from the sub bass into the mid bass. So this has actually got some really nice mid bass kick. You can see on the Harman graph the dotted target there. They tend to scoop out the upper bass and the lower mid range, so that can often sound a bit thin, a little bit less engaging. The Night takes things in a different direction, so it does rumble down low. I should mention that despite not being as boosted in the sub bass as the Harman target, it does rumble nicely down low, but the mid bass has got a nice powerful thump to it And then there is the mid-range, and this is a little bit unusual compared to most of the chi-fi stuff that we're used to. One outlier that's sort of similar to this in a way is the SPA high-end Max. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. So the mid-range here is nice and rich and emotive. It's got a sort of a velvety quality. So acoustic guitars have got a nice woody and organic tone with this full harmonic bloom going on. Electric guitars, they feel rounded, fairly smooth without sounding veiled, importantly. So there's good weight and density to mid-range notes, especially in the lower mid-octaves. Male and female vocals both benefit from that lushness. They sound intimate, they're emotionally engaging, but they don't sound muffled. There's still good clarity there. In the upper mids, vocals in the upper mids do have a bit of bite and, ample presence to them, thanks to that fairly significant 5 kilohertz peak. And then the treble, I would say the treble is well balanced. By the way, I forgot to mention, some of you will know, the dynamic driver takes care of the bass. The mid-range is served by a Sonyan balanced armature driver, and the treble is handled by a piezoelectric driver. So the treble is well balanced to complement the bass and the mid-range without sounding too forward or strident. And that piezo driver is really fast and precise. That's what they're really good at, those ultra-high frequencies. But a lot of the time, piezo drivers have this sort of certain piezo timbre to them. I don't hear that with the Knight here, which is a great thing. It sounds natural. It doesn't sound metallic. It doesn't have that unusual piezo timbre that some implementations have. But it adds clarity to the mid-range, and it has good extension, and it lends air and a touch of lightness to the overall presentation, and that kind of offsets the richness in the mid-range and the fullness of the upper bass. And then finally, when we get to the soundstage and technical performance, the soundstage dimensions are fairly modest. Like, it's not a really expansive soundstage, but it does have well-balanced proportions of both width and depth. Like some sound stages, if people say have a really wide soundstage, they're just sort of two-dimensional. They're wide, but they don't have any forward depth. It feels like a sort of everything's on a flat plane in front of you. The Knight has a well-rounded soundstage, so it's easy to pinpoint individual elements, which and because of the good instrument separation, each element sort of occupies its own space within the stage. So there is a good sense of different layering, different layers, I should say, and depth within the stage. Instrument separation, like I said, is solid. However, micro detail retrieval is a little bit subdued, so it's definitely not a class leader when it comes to detail retrieval, but it's not terrible either. It is somewhat similar to the Moondrop Blessing 3, and that is, in regards to micro details. So that's the Blessing 3. The Noble Knight is definitely a step above when it comes to build quality. Look, I do love these clear resin shells. They're beautiful, but these polished faceplates, they get heaps of little micro scratches on there. No matter how careful you are with them and how much care you take, they do get scratched up quite a lot. But when it comes to sound, look, the Blessing 3 pretty much really closely follows the 2019 Harman target. Now, I know not everybody understands what that means, but so the Blessing 3 has an elevated sub bass and a leaner lower mid-range, like I was talking about earlier. And that results in more sub-bass rumble, but a less punchy mid-bass. So it's really good for those super low rumbling notes, but things like kick drums and bass guitars don't have as much presence. Now, vocals and lower register instruments are thinner on the Blessing 3. They're less saturated than they are on the Knight. And while the Blessing 3 does have slightly better treble extension, its micro detail retrieval is about the same as the Knight, which I would label as sort of moderate or somewhat mediocre, but they're both about the same in terms of that. Both of these IEMs I would consider more musical than analytical. Both are a great option if you're looking for an emotive and engaging sound around that sort of $300 price mark. I don't know what the price of the Blessing 3 is now, but at the time of my review, it was, I think, just over 300. So the Night is a bit better value. And yeah, like I said, I think the Night has superior build quality. Just objectively, I mean, yeah, those faceplates are scratched up and they get covered in fingerprints as well. But anyway, guys, that's the Noble Audio Night. It's not going to be for everybody. Like, it just depends what you want. If you have been sort of missing or yearning for a bit more upper bass, a bit more richness and saturation in the mid bass and the lower mid range, these are a great option. So these are really good for vocals, really great for jazz music. If you're into jazz, like double bass on these sounds amazing, sounds fantastic. And besides all that, they are just stunning to look at. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, Family Audio File Style. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing that now. By the way, if you would like to support the channel and help me do what I do here, there is a link to the Patreon down in the description below, or you can join up the YouTubey thing, do those things. Or you can always just purchase through my affiliate links in the description below. All right, guys, until next time, I'll see you later.